For nearly 7 decades, Temple Emmanuel in Longview has stood as a piece of East Texas history. The Jewish congregation grew smaller over time, and the cost of keeping the doors open grew heavier. East Texas News Weekend's Andrew Culver shows how a recent proposal could turn the historic property into a gift for the whole city.
The Milstein family worked to keep the Jewish temple alive. Howard Rusty Milstein is the president. His father helped build the temple in the 1950s. His son, Jeff Milstein, has been a member his entire life. The congregation once had over 60 families. Attendance is now under 10 people. Members knew something had to be done.
People left, people died, people moved away. Our expenses very much exceeded our income.
I guess you could just call it the circle of life. The older generation died off and the younger generation moved away.
The congregation proposed donating the 5.8-acre property in a letter to the city of Longview about 2 weeks ago. If approved by city council, spokesperson Richard Yakeley says the city intends to use it as a park space. The property is along the Cargill Long Park Trail.
It's not every day that the city of Longview has the opportunity to even consider adding park space along our trail system.
Yakeley says the city would have to remove the temple. The city plans to preserve the historical marker and the cornerstone in the temple. As for the Milsteins, they're moving on from the past. They intend to join the congregation at Bethel in Tyler.
We're doing good. We all understand the situation and the reality of the situation. It's a mitzvah, which means it's a good thing, a commandment in Judaism to do something like this.
Andrew Culver, East Texas News Weekend.
The city says that it plans to discuss that proposal at the next Parks Advisory Board meeting. That's at the end of this month. If the board recommends accepting the proposal for the property, then the proposal would then go before the city council.